And hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. The superstars who made up reggae's golden generation in the 1970s were pretty amazing and outstanding characters with unbelievable and dramatic life stories. But the great Jacob "Killer" Miller, the bionic voice of Inner Circle, was simply on a level of his own. Besides possessing one of the greatest tenors in reggae history, he was a phenomenal songwriter and an extremely charismatic stage performer. As a human being, he was a force of nature all by himself. A boundless ball of energy, he was funny, fearless, and as likable as anyone could be. Nothing about Jacob was ordinary. Everything was special, including his intriguing heritage, which boasts of a special lineup of musicians. To begin with, he was born on the 4th of May 1952 in the town of Mandeville in the Manchester parish of Jamaica. Music was literally in his blood, as his mother, Joan Ashman, was a gifted choir singer and pianist, and his father, Sidney Elliott, was also an incredible singer and musician. Jacob's parents' relationship fell apart after he was born, and his father was soon after joined the large number of Caribbean people that moved to the UK as part of the Windrush generation. His dad, Sidney Elliott, moved to England in the mid-1950s, along with his younger brother, Alfred Elliott. The Elliott brothers would settle in a place called Lewisham, which is a district in southeast London, and was a vibrant multicultural neighborhood. While younger brother Alfred went to find work at a factory, elder bro Sidney Elliott would choose to explore his musical talents and would play small gigs to make ends meet at local pubs and clubs. And meanwhile, back home in Jamaica, young Jacob lived with his mother in Mandeville and was already displaying a massive aptitude and talent for music, even as a young kid. But things were tough for his mother, and in 1960 she moved to the US and settled in New York, which was a top destination for Jamaicans moving to America. So 8-year-old Jacob was sent to live with his aunt in Kingston, who owned and ran a popular hotel on 21 Rousseau Road. It was this move to Kingston with its vibrant music scene that really fed his desire and shaped his path to becoming an artist. And by the age of 16, Jacob had hustled his way into Studio One to record a song after convincing Coxsone Dodd to give him a chance. His talent was soon noticed by Augustus Pablo, and after releasing a few songs for Pablo's Rockers label, Jacob's fame began to grow all over Kingston and eventually Jamaica, and he would adopt the name of Miller, Jacob Miller. Meanwhile, over in England, Jacob's dad Sidney Elliott's grind had paid off. After becoming very popular on the nightclub scene in London, he bagged a record deal with a label called Spark and released 2 singles in Strawberry Blonde and Who Dat Girl. Both tracks became very popular in bars and nightclubs all over London and broke into the UK charts in 1969. He soon got a bigger deal with CBS Records and released songs like Desperation, Little Boy Blue, and a couple of others in the early 70s. Sidney's brother Alfred Elliott was living a quiet life as a factory worker in Lewisham and raising his family with his nurse wife Sylvia Elliott. And one of their songs, Maxwell, who was born in 1961, was by then showing signs of the musical energy synonymous with the family, as he was already singing with the choir at his mom's local church. His mom, Sylvia Elliott, incidentally came from the same neighborhood called Ballard's Valley in St. Elizabeth's Parish in Jamaica, where the Elliott brothers had grown up, and the place where she had met Maxi's father. By 1967, her sister, who was also a nurse, named Eulalie, had moved to Mandeville, the same place where Jacob had been born. While there, she would meet and fall in love with a technician named Clifford Myers, and together they had a son named Dwight Arrington Myers. By 1972, the couple and their son moved to America and settled in Mount Vernon, New York. A year later, a Jamaican immigrant called Clive Campbell, aka DJ Kool Herc, who had moved to New York a decade earlier, would soon start a trend that would spark what we now know as hip-hop, a movement that would explode in popularity across the city and eventually America. And young Dwight Myers would grow up at the heart of it and would develop what became an inseparable love for the culture. Back in Jamaica, Jacob Miller had by then joined a group called Inner Circle, and his addition to the band was a match made in heaven, as their popularity would explode both home and abroad by 1976, as they would unleash classic hits like Tired Philic Weed and Tenement Yard. In those times, Jacob was as popular as Bob Marley was by late 1970s, and he made his film debut in the classic movie Rockers in 1978 and showed his acting potential by stealing every scene that he was in. By 1979, Inner Circle had signed for Island Records and released the classic album Everything Is Great, followed by New Age Music in 1980. And back in England, Jacob's cousin Maxwell was a gifted teenage singer at 19 years of age. He had followed in his dad's footsteps and had learned the trade of carpentry, but he had a strong desire to sing and often got into trouble for neglecting his work at construction sites to entertain his co-workers. His biggest inspirations musically were his uncle Sidney Elliott, Dennis Brown, and Jacob Miller. But incredibly, he had no idea that Jacob was his first cousin and was the first son of his uncle Sidney. For one thing, Jacob had adopted the name Miller, and for reasons no one knows, Uncle Sidney kept it a secret from everyone. So Jacob didn't know his dad, but was proud to tell anyone who cared to listen that his real name was Elliot. However, in February 1980, Sidney Elliott broke the news to his brother Alfred and family that the superstar singer Jacob Miller was indeed his son. The then 19-year-old Maxi's mind was blown to learn that his idol was also his cousin, and this inspired him to put in more effort towards his musical career, and certainly he must have had dreams of meeting his famous cousin one day. But tragically, about a month later, Jacob Miller would pass away in a ghastly car accident alongside his son in March 1980. This terrible tragedy would stun Jacob's family, the music world, as well as the Elliott family over in England. Young Maxi was hit particularly hard by the loss of the cousin that he had never met, and confessed in a recent interview that he was angry with his uncle Sidney Elliott for years for not embracing Jacob until it was too late. And true to the Elliott tradition, Maxwell, now known as Maxi Priest, bagged a record deal with Virgin Records in 1984 and released his incredible debut album You're Safe in 1985. He would go on to become among the biggest reggae artists of the 1980s and the first reggae artist to bag a #1 song on the US Billboard charts when his song Close to You achieved that feat in 1990. And over in America, Maxi Priest's cousin, through his mom's younger sister, Aunt Eulalie, named Dwight Myers, had caught the hip-hop bug which exploded out of New York in the 70s, and in 1986 formed a rap group called Heavy D and the Boys at the age of 19, and he bagged a record deal with Uptown Records a year after, and went on to become one of the biggest hip-hop acts of the 80s and the 90s. Jacob was an unusual man, so I'm not surprised that his story was truly a unique one. And that, my dear viewer, was the tale of the amazing family tree of Jacob Killer Miller. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.